Hello, and welcome everyone to this second panel of Nextv series Caribbean 2021. My name is Juan Pablo Conti, and I am the Content and Audience Development Manager for the Americas at DataXis. Wireless technologies are getting more powerful, and the telecom operators relying on wireless networks to reach their customers are also extending their footprint to larger areas, often not covered by any other terrestrial infrastructure. Now, the Caribbean region has historically relied heavily on wireless communications. On the first stage, this was mainly to provide both international connectivity with the rest of the world via satellite links, and also for connectivity between islands within close proximity, usually using microwave systems. Then, as submarine cables began arriving to all Caribbean nations and providing more affordable and redundant international links, the use of national cellular networks for internet access as a replacement, or in many cases as the only alternative to fixed broadband, experienced really phenomenal growth across the region. Today, a larger proportion of the Caribbean population is accessing the internet via a 3G or a 4G LTE cellular connection than by a fixed broadband network. And new satellite-based systems offering affordable broadband services to even the remotest islands and the most rural areas within each island are on their way. So what impact is this highly wireless dependent broadband ecosystem having on the adoption of new OTT video services in the Caribbean? Will new streaming video offerings make the most of the eventual arrival of 5G networks and new satellite broadband services? To discuss all of these issues in detail, we have brought together an expert panel with 4 international executives who jointly boast over 60 years of experience working in the telecommunications industry, particularly in wireless and IP video. So let me introduce them. Stephen Curran is the CTO of Cable Bahamas. Stephen has been working in the telecoms industry for over 20 years. For 16 of those years, he worked with Digicel on the rollout of the group's cellular and fiber to the home networks around the world. In 2016, he joined Alive in Nassau as the Chief Technology Officer or Chief Alive Innovator. In this position, he managed the rollout of 235 cell sites across the Bahamas. And Stephen became the CTO of CBL Group in October 2018. He's originally from Ireland and resides in Jamaica, although for COVID reasons is now in the Bahamas. No, Stephen?
I work in the Bahamas, but I'm living in Jamaica.
That's what it is. Living in Jamaica because of COVID, so that's what it was. Xavier Leclerc is the VP Business Development of Broadpeak. He has more than 15 years of international experience in the video industry, with expertise in consulting and selling technology to content owners and network operators across the globe. Xavier currently drives the business development strategy at Broadpeak, one of the leading providers of video delivery technologies like CDN, cloud DVR, and multicast AVR. Prior to joining Broadpeak, Xavier developed the business the video business of Nokia, Alcatel-Lucent, and Akamai. He's originally from France, and he resides in London, UK. Rafael Picardo is the Network Operations Manager, OTT Platform Management and Development at Wind Telecom. Rafael has amassed over 17 years of experience working in the telecoms industry. He has first-hand experience in the planning, deployment, and operation of cable and wireless pay TV networks in the Dominican Republic and also in Panama. As part of his current responsibilities at Wind Telecom, Rafael manages the video coding, the streaming generation structure, and CDN used as part of a proprietary OTT platform for the deployment of linear TV and VOD content. He's going to be talking, of course, about that new OTT platform here today, and he's based in the Dominican Republic. Last but not least, Thierry Hippolyte is the CEO of NewTV. Thierry joined NewTV as its Chief Executive Officer in March of this year, so very new to the role. Under his direction, he will lead the implementation of the company's first OTT video service offering, which will complement NewTV's DVB-T2 operations. In his previous role, Thierry was the general manager of Haitian ISP HiNet, where he managed overall operations for profitability and business development. He also served as director of customer service at Voila, a mobile operator that was later acquired by Digicel, and he resides in Port-au-Prince in Haiti. So welcome all of you. Rafael, we're going to start with you. Really, as its name suggests, WIN Telecom is an operator that, since its commercial debut in 2008, has relied on wireless technologies to deploy triple play services in the Dominican Republic. Now, I think for your broadband and voice services, you started out with a pioneering 4G over WiMAX network, whereas for pay TV, you initially built a digital service over MMDS, which more recently evolved to a pure play OTT pay TV offering. Now, designing and commissioning each of those early wireless services presented you with some unique challenges. Can you share with us what those challenges were and how you overcame them?
Yeah, basically the challenges came with all the integration we had to do, and just to resume it all, we had that WiMAX network that had to coexist with the MMDS network that works basically on the same RF spectrum, right? And we had that goal to have around 250 channels on a 300 megahertz spectrum. We're talking about 2008, and we were doing MPEG-2, so that was pretty challenging on that point. And later on, we migrated to LTE, and on the TV side, we started migrating to MPEG-4. That gave us a lot of better compression and a lot of ease on adding more channels to the structure. On OTT, basically the challenge has been on developing the whole structure. As you mentioned, it is a proprietary solution, and we're developing almost everything by ourselves and with the help of some developers, but outside developers, but almost all the handwork is done by us, basically. In-house. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we're gonna try and see how that's working out during the discussion. It's an option that every single operator deploying an OTT service has to make at some point. Do I go with my own development, make everything in-house, or do I buy something off the shelf and take it?
Yeah, and basically the whole idea is to have more control upon the service and the things that we're doing, and that drove us to try and do a good solution and a stable solution for customers, basically.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, that's usually the advantage, right? When you go have more control over what you build. Thierry, NewTV in Haiti is following a similar path in the sense that for the past 10 years, you have been offering a pay TV service distributed over the air. Only in your case, it wasn't MMDS, it was a DVB-T2 transmission technology. And also you are now planning to launch a complementary OTT service, a video service, to sort of future-proof your operations. let's start by the beginning. What does your existing wireless pay TV service consist of, and what specific geographic areas of Haiti are you serving?
Well, thanks, Juan Pablo. So we basically have a good array of TV content, giving multiple languages from the Caribbean and Latin America to our customer base. We cover the primary cities in Haiti, Port-au-Prince, Cap-Haïtien, and the other big cities. And now we're looking into increasing our footprint to acquire, new market share, expand our customer base, and be able to provide, a better quality service to our customers. So that's basically the position that we are in right now, and what we're looking for in terms of, OTT deployment.
Okay. We're gonna touch on the future OTT deployment later on.
Mm-hmm.
I have a next question for Steven. It's interesting because Steven likes to describe himself as a wireless guy pretending to be a cable TV guy, which is why, by the way, we thought he was perfect for this partner, right? Where we're looking at the video delivery world from a wireless perspective. Now, Steven, Cable Bahamas also, as its name suggests, is using, in your case, HFC network to offer video services, but you have also recently launched a DTH service. What motivated this decision, and how is satellite TV complementing your cable TV offering in the Bahamas?
Yeah, well, I worked a bit on DVB-T as well. I actually looked at the new TV network when I worked for Digicel, so I know a little bit about that and some of the problems that you have. We had an older ATSC network on some of the smaller islands to deliver some of the local channels and some of the foreign channels, just like 6 or 7 channels, just to kind of tick a box for the license. And it's kind of an expensive system to operate, and it wasn't very good because the channel range was limited. So then I came up with talked to a few guys in Miami, and they had a DTH offering that's very, very good. So what we do is we offer the basic services for free to anybody who wants it. And then if you give us a few extra dollars, then we give you a silver package, and we give you more and more channels. And of course, it removes the need for physical infrastructure on these islands, which is hard to maintain. Like the Bahamas is quite a geographically diverse, spread out kind of place. And it's an excellent way to offer services in out of the way areas, which of course there's a lot of places like that in the Caribbean, like Jamaica, Haiti, Trinidad, Guyana. There's a lot of places where it's very difficult to get physical infrastructure. So it's a very much a complementary service. We offer cable TV on the larger islands to our customers, and then on the smaller islands we have this new DTH service, direct to home satellite.
When was this launch exactly?
We launched the service probably just the very start of this year.
Okay, it's very new. Yeah. Okay.
Pretty new.
Okay. Xavier, when you look in general at the state of video delivery across the Caribbean, how are pay TV services being delivered in the region these days? What's your view?
Yeah, so I think, based on what we are hearing, right, video delivery is fragmented today. I would say on one end, in terms of, the viewing hours, you have the most popular services that are using the traditional technologies like cable using DVB-C, satellite using direct to home based on DVB-S. And these services are delivered to the main TV screen, right? Traditionally using a set-top box. And this is something we've seen for many years all over the globe. It's basically using some protocols and formats that were standardized maybe 20, 30 years ago. And frankly, that don't evolve much anymore, right? So that's one end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum is very much the OTT providers becoming stronger in the Caribbean. So first with Netflix, obviously arriving 10 years ago, and also the likes of Disney, who launched a Disney Plus service about, I think it was 6 months ago in the region, and others, right? You could talk about Amazon Prime Video, HBO Max. I mean, there's a long list here. But to do this, what is interesting is they use the newer formats, right? Like HLS or Dash that have evolved over the last decade, right? So in between these two extremes, what you find is the market evolving. You see a transition that is basically operating at 2 levels in my mind, right? The first one is consuming video, all the video services. So whether you're doing video on demand, live or time shifted, if you do catch-up TV, for example, this is becoming broader, right? And this is becoming, this is reaching more devices, more multi-screen devices. See, on the weekend, you know, I may be watching the football game on my iPad, you know, while the kids are watching cartoons on TV, or vice versa, right? But, you know, there is a broader reach onto more devices. And I think also the video services are not bound to the traditional network footprints anymore, right? People want to consume all their content in, you know, the same way as they use Netflix today, right? So what it means, and what it means for us here at Broadpeak, is very much that we see a strong interest from operators to build their own OTT solution, right? A kind of solution that deliver video to any screen, that are not bound to the reach of the network. And these operators basically want to offer, you know, their fixed line customers a video service that they can take with them when they are on the go, right? So I'm going outside my house, I want to still use my video services on the 4G or 5G networks.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's, Rafael, was a good example of what you're trying to achieve with your own OTT platform, right? Now, when and why did Wind Telecom decide to launch its own OTT platform? And what does the service, by the way, is called TVO, which makes a lot more sense when you pronounce it in Spanish, right? Because it's TVO, it's a wordplay for ICU. Can you describe what TVO or TVO consists of, also?
Or TVO in English, you can say as TV online. So
okay, all right.
Basically, it's a solution that tries to service or serves online TV, basically linear TV with VOD. And we launched TVO on early 2019.
Okay.
It was pushed because of we had some issues with the RF spectrum, and we had to free it for 4G. So we got pushed by that need. And basically, it's been a very good ride on it. So
let's try to make this clear. You were having some issues with the spectrum that you were using to deliver traditional pay TV services. You had to release that spectrum.
Yeah, we had to release it. It wasn't a technical.
No. It was a regulatory issue, right? And that sort of forced you to launch the OTT platform that you were preparing. In this case, really as a true replacement for your pay TV services over
basically that was it. Yeah.
Okay, that's very interesting. Thierry, what will New TV's future, in your case, it hasn't yet been launched, OTT service look like? Who will be able to access it and on which devices? How do you envisage it in terms of content offering and functionality? What do you have in mind?
Well, one of the things that we looked at, what's the value that we're going to have, and I'm very happy to see that Rafael is going in-house with his solution. I believe we're probably going to go with the external expertise, because it's not something that you can find easily locally, but definitely grow to that in-house support in the future. But basically, it's going to be available in the iOS and Android devices. Just like Xavier saying, the flexibility that the customers are looking at right now, or being able to look at, just like you're looking at your Netflix, you're on your TV, then you have your phone or your tablet that you can look at, and eventually go into the set-top box. Have a nice little set-top box with a new TV logo to be able to have that look and feel and branding capability. So we're looking into opening it to the wider range of customers within the entire Haitian geography, and being able to give them the same level of content, but with higher services, and add some additional content, because the flexibility that you have with the OTT, you have that limitation. And I know, Karen, the TV network, the limitation we have in terms of that capability. So we're very excited in terms of what we're going to be able to offer our customer base in terms of features and functionalities. And you're looking at the catch up, You're looking at, the push notifications, recommendation engines, all of these things, which are very good key features that are now available in the market with multiple operators. It's not just, something that, that Netflix or HBO Max or Disney can do. Now you have more OTT providers being able to give those solutions in the market in the Caribbean.
Yep, and basically, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Basically, the whole idea it's all that you said, Terry. You have if you do a good development or integration, you can have all devices covered from day one, basically.
Exactly.
Right now, if you cover Android and iOS, you're basically done. You're covering almost 70-80% of the device market. So that's you just have to focus on services and stability, and you're done. Basically.
Absolutely.
Some pieces of advice then from Rafael. Okay. I'm sure you will stay in touch after today. Now, Thierry, I assume one of the big advantages of migrating from DVB-T to a full OTT video delivery will be overcoming the reception challenges posed by the sort of highly mountainous terrain, which is so characteristic of Haiti, right? I'm wondering how much of a consideration this was.
Well, that's one of the top 3 reasons that we decided to go for that, because being able to increase our footprint within the market was going to cost us an arm and a leg. For everybody that knows how the Caribbean is, and Haiti is no different from the other countries, it's very mountainous, as you say. So getting that last mile is extremely expensive. And for us, most of the operators, all of the operators in Haiti, we manage everything from from the fuel to the towers and everything. So the O&M cost is absolutely crazy. And then talk about mountainous, the RF conditions to manage that, to steer that over an analog system is absolutely costly. So to go to an OTT solution where you have that capacity to be able to offer the customers TV, mobile, and on their set-top box at home via the internet, as the internet capabilities increasing in Haiti, is for us, it's like we're taking 2 steps forward faster than anybody else. So, and for the market, this is going to be more or less like the standard in the coming years.
Okay. Xavier, for OTT video services to prosper, really you need ubiquitous and reliable broadband connectivity. It's a basic. How are new wireless and fiber networks enabling better OTT services?
Yeah, that's a good point here, Pablo. So indeed, you need networks that are going to be reliable, and that's what we required for OTT. And it's a little bit funny because OTT is meant to be able to go over any network, right? But having the reliable connectivity is actually key for the OTT services. And I think this is where it gets interesting now with the new networks. If you want to, if people want to deliver, if people want to access basically OTT content, so we talked about broad range of content already, the set-top box, iOS, Android TV over various devices and various networks, people still expect a high quality experience, right? People are used to the TV and they will expect this high quality experience. And the reality is customers do not put up with bad video services, especially when it comes to the main screen, right? If it goes onto the TV screen, it has to be of good quality, whatever network you're using, right? No one wants to see their main screen rebuffering. And we've seen actually through studies that if you start having, I think, more than 2 rebuffering events in one streaming session, your rate of abandonment, the rate of people leaving this program is, I think, above 50%, right? So this is really important. And when we talk to operators, we know that their network is the asset. right? And these networks provide the bandwidth. They improve every day. So you mentioned higher bandwidth with 4G, 5G, fiber, DOCSIS 3. I mean, there's a raft of new new networks coming in, and having the bandwidth I think is great. But more importantly, the networks are becoming more distributed, and I think this is where very relevant for the Caribbean, because this distributed nature of the networks basically allows local caching and localized video delivery, right? And this leads to lower cost of delivery as the video only travels on a small portion of the network, and also the better quality of experience, right? So lower latency. No one wants to watch live TV that is delayed by 30, 40, or 50 seconds, just too late, right? Faster start time. People want to have this, experience like on TV when you zap, it goes really quickly. Your stream starts fast, and also reduce buffering. And that's basically what customers want.
Okay. Personally, I would be on the 50% who would abandon after 2 rebufferings. So I felt very identified with that part of the frustration. But really, Stephen, Xavier was talking about things like lower latency requirements. Talking on a wireless world, this is really what 5G, one of the 5G promises, right? But we're still not there. I'm wondering, based on your long experience in the wireless and cellular world, how do you expect that migration process from 4G and LTE to 5G to unfold in the Caribbean?
Well, I just want to start off by saying that we all know that fiber to the home is the best solution to deliver broadband to people's homes. Okay, there's no debate about that. Wireless is not as good as fiber, just because that's the way physics works. Now, unfortunately, fiber is very expensive. So in some of these smaller islands and more remote places, it's not practical to spend $3,000–4,000 per home to connect them with fiber. So then what's the next best thing? Well, we've been doing LTE on some of the smaller islands combined with DTH to deliver our products. I think 5G will be much better. The big problem that you have, of course, as we say, is a reliable connection. If you're talking about ultra high def, you're talking about all these fancy services, you're talking about 5 screens inside in this home, you can't do that with LTE. Just the bandwidth is not there. So 5G will give the improvement in the wireless connectivity in order to provide these services. But again, it will be catch up compared to fiber. For 5G to happen in the Caribbean, the government have to release the spectrum. The big problem always is spectrum. Rafael, I have no hair left. You still have some of yours based on spectrum. Spectrum is just is a very, very difficult thing. And the other big problem with the Caribbean is it's half European, it's what, a third European, a third American, a third South American. So when I worked with Digicel, there was 20 different spectrum regimes in 20 different countries. And yeah. I'm a radio guy. I'm a radio amateur originally, so I know my radio stuff pretty well. And it's still a nightmare to try and deal with it. You can have islands like St. Lucia and Martinique that are 10 miles apart and have got completely different spectrum rules. It makes it very difficult. But it's all possible. It's all doable. But just try and explain the nuts and bolts of how spectrum works to regulators or to non-engineers can be quite difficult sometimes, and that's a bit of a challenge. Of course, also the big problem with 5G is the cost. It's still very, very expensive. I do a lot of work with RFPs with vendors, and the devices and the network cost is still huge. And even when you build a network, then you have to get the data from the cell site back to the core, and you can't use microwave anymore. Realistically, the bandwidth is just not there. You need a fiber connection. It again adds to the cost. So yeah, it is all doable. And again, the whole problem though is the business case. Are you going to extract more money from the customer for this new improved service, or are they just going to pay you the same as they did before? So the huge problem that we have in our business is that I think the data demand is growing at 30% a year and the revenue is growing at 3%. So I'm screaming at my CEO and CFO to give me more money, and they're saying, listen, the revenue's only going up at 3%. I can't give you these millions of dollars. So I think that's a problem worldwide.
Very interesting.
I have a question for Stephen, actually. In your experience, what's the time frame that you anticipate, a 5G becoming a solution in the Caribbean? You looking 5 years, 10 years, or something around shorter?
In my experience, it's been about 10 years per generation. So GSM to 3G to 4G has been around 10 years, becomes ubiquitous. Yeah. If they're doing 5G in Korea, maybe what American Korea have it now. So maybe I'd say you're probably going to start seeing the first 5G in the Caribbean. They have some of it now. I know they do some in Trinidad, but when I say widespread, I mean like 50% of your customers are on 5G. You're probably looking 5-6 years into the future. And again, in places like Haiti as well, it might even be a bit longer because the device is just so expensive. Like, I was a CTO of Digicel Haiti, so I know Haiti pretty well. Like, you know, the ARPU in Haiti is like maybe $4 or $5. In the Bahamas is like $30, $40. So again, there's a big difference when it comes to people's ability to spend, you know, $500 on a 5G handset, you know, that's just not, you know.
Very interesting. You know, one of the things that the taxis does, apart from organizing events, is we provide market research and forecast. So I'm sure our analysts will be listening very carefully about our forecast, Stephen, of at least 5-6 years to begin with our 5G estimates for the Caribbean.
I could just say as well, if you want to be a disruptor though, because I worked with Digicel on the WiMAX business in Jamaica, we had no, Digicel had, I still say we, Digicel had no, Digicel had no fixed infrastructure in Jamaica. So the only way we could enter the data market was by going with WiMAX. So if a company wants to come into the Caribbean that doesn't have any fiber or any copper or any coax cable, and they want to go into the broadband business, 5G could be a way for them to do it. Okay. If they've got deep pockets.
Big if, right? Big if. Rafael, once 5G networks are eventually launched, let's wait and see if it's 5, 6 or longer, or perhaps it's not that long, but once they do you think they will have the potential to be a viable access technology to deliver OTT services? Stephen already mentioned some of that. Nothing beats fiber, right? But will the promise significantly reduce latency be enough? For example, what do you think, Rafael?
I think it will be viable for it, and it will work as good as we think it will. We're currently working with LTE, and LTE compared to the promise of 5G, it's just a scrap. So it should work as good as promised, and we will have a lot of bandwidth. And as Stephen said, with all the new compression systems and all the new resolutions that we use on video, these high-end resolutions are going to be available, and we could use them with that promise that 5G is granting us. So I think it will.
Okay, Xavier, how do you see video services evolving? What can we expect next in the region based on what you're listening?
Yeah. So it's fascinating to think about 5G and what else we could be doing. I think we also need to look at how video is delivered today, the actual formats of video. And I think here the trend is only going one way. It's going towards OTT services, right? OTT services being delivered by operators and by content providers and delivered to a variety of devices, right? So we talked about ABR, adaptive bitrate, a little bit already, HLS and Dash, and this is basically the base, the format that is going to go to all the devices. And I think this leads us to two, predictions for the region. First one is there is a big opportunity with advertising, right? Especially targeted advertising that becomes possible and easy to implement with ABR, right? So we see a lot of interest to deliver video services that may be cheaper or free, thanks to advertising that is targeted to consumers and not the content. So this is where, solutions like, server-side ad insertion is great to monetize video inventory across all the screens without, heavy integration on all the devices. There's a lot of interest in this at the moment. And then the second one is OTT is the way forward for all networks, right? So whether you deliver video on cable, on a telco network, mobile, even satellite, we today deploy a lot of CDN capacity to deliver ABR content over IP networks in unicast. But we also deploy more and more multicast ABR solutions, right? Which basically takes live ABR content, again, the HLS or the Dash format, things that are going to be consumed on the multi-screen devices, and we combine this with multicast capabilities of the network, right? So this is where we deliver a very scalable solution for live multicast, live multi-screen that doesn't require any CDN. So, this is the future for us, a great way to simplify the video distribution, move everything to ABR, and remove some of the legacy video formats from the existing networks, right? This is where we see, the market going.
Just to clarify to your audience, when Xavier is mentioning ABR, he's referring to adaptive bitrate. And I will take that concept, ABR, adaptive bitrate, to put a question to you, Rafael, because I understand that it was also an instrumental feature in the TVO or TVO platform. It would be interesting to hear what type of ABR support you're designing for your Android and your iOS devices, and what specific TV content are you processing, or do you plan to process through adaptive bitrate?
Right now, we're prepared to do ABR with Dash and HLS, and we're deploying a couple of linear channels. Basically, we're finishing testing this new feature and having it deployed to the audience. And as Javier said, it is seamless to the customer, to the user, basically. The benefits are huge. On the client side, client is always going to have a flawless or a smooth video playing. You're going to have no buffering or less buffering, and it's going to be adapting to your bandwidth. Mm-hmm. You're going to have a couple of profiles that are going to be assigned to the customers dynamically, and customers going to have the best video possible according to his bandwidth. So yes, I think that's the way everyone should be thinking around OTT. I totally agree.
Juan, just make a point on that if you don't mind.
Yes.
Yeah, the whole aspect of deep packet inspection on your LTE core or on your data core is very important. That what you can do is you look at the traffic on the site, and then what you can do, if the site gets busy, then you can send a command for the ABR to kick in, and then start down rating the customers. So exactly as you just said there, the customer, the quality does go down on the customer's picture a small bit, but as I always say, some service without buffering is better than no service at all. So it's just something to bear in mind that the DPI is a very, very important part of this jigsaw, and all the thing around that. The deep packet inspection.
Yeah, deep packet inspection, DPI. Okay, including some additional important technical questions there to consider. Thierry, Rafael was saying, I think everyone should do it. Are you thinking of doing or of incorporating that sort of ABR support for your new OTT service?
Absolutely. And listening to Xavier and Rafael talk, I feel like they were part of my previous board meeting, because it's exactly what the world is thinking, and it's exactly what everybody is discussing right now. Okay, so what's the next step? We need to definitely go to OTT, and ABR is absolutely one of the key items, especially in a country like Haiti, where the quality of the internet is not as stable across all the regions. So you need to have that capability where the customer still has a fair good experience on his TV service, depending. And you talked about profile. I think we're probably going to go 2-3 profiles, maybe stretch it to 4, depending on the provider's capability, just to be able to provide to the customers the most reliable and best picture experience ever on his OTT service.
Okay. Stephen, we mentioned that in the introduction, right? After many years and then several ambitious projects to use satellites to bring that truly global broadband access to anywhere and everywhere on Earth, there are now at least 2 low Earth orbit satellite constellations that are being built. We're talking of the Starlink network by Elon Musk, SpaceX company, and OneWeb, which are promising relatively affordable, and I'm quoting relatively because still apparently initially at least $1,000, but finally those networks are apparently coming in and will start serving historically underserved populations. How do you expect those new services will affect the Caribbean?
Okay, well, on the positive side, I spoke to a friend of mine who had the service in rural America. It's about $500 for the CPE, and then they want about $100 a month for the service. And they're getting about 40, 50 megabits per second down, maybe 5 or 6 up. So that's kind of the parameters you're dealing with. And of course, as you say, it is ubiquitous. Once you can see a clear view of the sky, the service will work. Now, again, a clear view, it has to be, you can't have trees around you. It really does need a clear view, so it's not going to work everywhere. It's not like satellite TV where it's just one satellite in the sky. The satellites do move, so the antenna has to be able to see the satellite as it moves across the sky. So it won't be suitable absolutely everywhere, but it's still a pretty good technology. In terms of the minuses, there's a huge regulatory hurdle they're going to have to break through. So, for example, there's all the Caribbean islands have regulators, and they all want to put. The reason why they're there, of course, is to regulate the spectrum and, of course, to extract money from the operators. There's all kinds of service fees, and we've got to pay a certain percent of our revenue and all that kind of stuff. All that regulatory stuff has to be ironed out with these new operators. They're not going to tolerate a guy coming in and not paying regulatory fees to the government so people can have service. That's not the way governments work. They have to get their tax. They got to get a pound of flesh from somebody. So in terms of the technology, and again, they're nowhere near as good as fiber. Go back to my earlier points. Like the great thing that the satellite brings is the fact that it can work in rural areas, it can work at sea, it can work in boats, it can work in cars. So now more than mobile, it's this whole mobility thing is what they bring to the party. But in terms of will the fiber to the home business suddenly disappear because of satellite? No, it certainly won't. Fiber to the home is giving you gigabits per second. Satellite is giving you tens of megabits per second. It does have a niche, but it's not really going to be a mass market, in my opinion.
Okay. Xavier, what's your view on the potential of these sort of services as a channel to deliver OTT services? How do OTT and satellite work with each other in general?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, right? And I think as Stephen was explaining, those constellations, with Starlink and OneWeb, they are basically VSAT architecture. So they are low orbit satellites. That means you can have reduced latency on those, a lower ping, if you like, but at their heart, they remain VSAT, right? So that means you're establishing basically connectivity between point-to-point connectivity between yourself and the internet by going up and down onto the satellite, right? So this is great if you want to access data services. This will work also for the OTT services, but this is not an optimized video delivery, right? To optimize video, you need to somehow be able to either cache or broadcast through the network. And if you look at DTH, you basically broadcast all the way from a satellite to many users. So here, in the case of those networks, the architecture not being optimal, I feel like there's going to be, maybe a squeeze using ABR. We're just talking about, right, to basically pack all the video up to the satellite and back down to the users. So you may be able to do OTT services. I think that's going to work. You may have, I think, cap on, the usage. You may not be able to use, as much bandwidth as you would on a fixed line network, for example. So, my view is that, yes, it's going to be possible, like it is today on some non-optimized network, but from a, architecture standpoint, LEO satellites don't really address the requirement from a technical or an economical standpoint.
Okay. Stephen, we talked a lot about wireless and IP video in this panel, which was, of course, the idea, but I don't want to miss the opportunity to ask you, as the CTO of a major cable operator in the Caribbean, about your vision of the transformation that the cable TV world is currently experiencing. Is the cable TV world moving to all IP? And how are you planning to sort of simplify your video delivery infrastructure?
It's an excellent question. And again, I was brought into Cable Bahamas with an old boss who used to say fresh eyes, because as I said, I'm not a cable TV guy originally. I come from a different world. And the change that we're trying to get across is that we're now going to be a broadband company that do a bit of TV on the side, as opposed to a TV company that do broadband. So the mind shift is going to change, because again, even on the commercial side, the margins in TV are nowhere near as good as the margins in broadband, just from a commercial point of view. So, and again, if we have an IPTV network, an IP network, excuse me, that delivers service to our customer, whether it's Netflix, whether it's downloads, whether it's music, whether it's linear TV. It doesn't really matter. I don't really care what the customer is watching. That's his business. I've got to make sure that he doesn't get buffering, he doesn't get packet loss, that it's working for him. And then also things like if he's getting close to his 50 megabit per second limit and I can upsell him to 100, that I've got systems in place that do that upselling. So so basically, yes, it is going towards IPTV. And again, just thoughts on linear TV. The thing that linear TV is going to be used for, I think, in 5 years' time is news and sports. Anything that has to be live. Anything that's not live is going to be OTT via Netflix. It's going to be, the guys are going to sit down, they're going to watch The Crown or whatever show they like, and they're not going to want to wait till next week to watch it. They're going to want to watch the entire series. But again, news is very popular in the Caribbean. Everyone wants to watch the nightly news. And then, of course, live sports, American football, baseball, English soccer, whatever they want to watch. People want to watch that live as well. So I think they're the two key, in terms of consumption, it's news and sports is going to be the main thing, I think.
Okay. Xavier, very, very shortly, less than a minute, if you can. Very easy question also. Will OTT providers win it all then? Is that where we're going?
Yeah, that's a good question. And just bouncing back on what Stephen was saying, I think, this is a great question, especially given the timing, right? You see Verizon in the US offloading its video division for $5 billion last week. Today, it's AT&T with Time Warner for $45 billion. So you may think that OTT providers are going to win it all. I think the reality is different, right? So yes, APR technology is going to win for sure, but the OTT providers, they need the scale, right? They need the scale of the telcos to help them. So what we're seeing going forward is that collaboration is the way forward, very much, from a technology standpoint. So we see, satellite, for example, feeding mobile networks, right? So in some islands, for example, being able to feed ABR from a satellite to a cache onto a mobile network. We think those models are very interesting for Caribbean. And then going forward, the whole aggregation of services that Stephen mentioned is the way forward. So the best content on the best network, this is what, what's going to win in the end. And the right example for that is very much DAZN. If you're familiar with DAZN, the Netflix of sports, right? They recently won the football in Italy, the Premier League in Italy, and they do this in partnership for delivery with Telecom Italia, right? So this is exactly what we're talking about. The best network, the best content together, give the best experience.
Okay, this is all the time we had for this second panel of Nextv series Caribbean. Thank you very much to our guest speakers for sharing all of your expertise and your views with all of us. And thank you to everyone in our audience. We'll take a less than 15-minute break before our next panel, which is called Best Strategies for Pay TV Operators on Android TV. See you in a few minutes. Thank you to everyone and goodbye.
Thank
you.